Hi, everyone, and welcome to my channel. So, I have a question. I've been seeing step parents adopting their stepchildren, and so I was kind of curious about it. I said, well, let me dig a little deeper and see what are the pros and cons of step parents adoption. So, go ahead and sit back because we're going to talk about it. So, for those of you who are new to this channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Lois, and I'm a therapist, and I've also been in the blended family for 27 years. 27 years is a long time. So, in those 27 years, I've learned a lot. And what I've learned, I'm going to talk about on this channel. And as being a therapist, I've learned a lot about blended families. So you get the so you get the best of both worlds. I can't talk today. You get me being a therapist and also a stepmom and a bio mom in a blended family. And so this channel is for all things blended family. I talk about issues, advice, and more because I just don't just talk. Sometimes I have guests that come on. So you're in the right place at the right time. But before we go a little further, so I also want to just stop right here. Hopefully you can see this and let you know I've written a book and it's for blended families, and it's called Take a Deep Breath, Relax, because you got this. And it's on Amazon, it's on Book Reads, and it's on Goodreads. And what it is this book is a very good resource. And I wrote it for step parents and bio parents that are having challenges in their blended family. And it talks about a lot of the issues that come up in blended families. And I also have a reflection where after you read the segment, you can reflect on what you read and see how the questions relate to your personal experience. And I also have scriptures in there for individuals that want to know that God supports you in this blended family, and scripture to encourage you and to show you that God is with you in this whole process of blending your family. So that's my little spiel for the moment. So I just really want to get into this whole thing about adoption. Like I said, I've been seeing it on TV. Even in my family, people have been adopting their stepchildren. So let me be honest and be transparent. This is not something I ever thought about when I started 27 years in my blended family. Because for a lot of people, we did what was called the informal adoption. Once you got into the blended family, um, grandma became your grandma, grandpa, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. You just all informally just adopted them and said that they were your family. But now people are doing it the legal way, and they are legally adopting their stepchildren. And on this channel, one of the things that you will see is that I'm going to be honest. And sometimes honesty, it hurts. And so for me, growing up, and even 40 years ago, people were adopting. Yeah, this isn't a new concept. They were adopting, but they were adopting for the name. They were adopting so the kids can all have the same name. Most people. Now, I know there's always an exception to the rule, but most people were adopting so their kids could have all to have the same name because it was looked at as shameful if your kids had a different name. And so all the kids had the same name. And so some of them, they did do the legal adoption for that reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm just being honest with back then, that's what they did. They adopted so the kids could have all the same name. And adoption is not a new concept because even in the Bible, God tells us that when we become Christians, we are adopted into his family. So it's a good word and, it's a good thing to be adopted. But I just wanted to kind of look at the process of adoption, first of all. First of all, the bio parent cannot just be taken out of the child's life by the other bio parent. They just can't say, I think you're unfit, so you have to get out of their life. That's not how the process starts. How it starts is when the bio parent is usually not involved in the child's life. They're not involved in the child support. They're not involved in visiting the child. They're basically an absentee parent. So that gets the process started. And in many states, like I said before, the other bio parent can't just claim that the parent is unfit. It has to go through the courts. And then there has to be someone that's willing to adopt the child. And so in this case, the step parent would step up and say, I want to adopt this child. The bio parent, the absentee bio parent, can give up the child willingly, or the courts can take it. And the courts can take their rights various ways. A few of the ways is if they're unfit, if they have abused the child, or if they have abandoned the child. Those are three ways that the courts can take the child from that parent. And once again, once he or she has that right taken, then they have no more legal rights to that child. Those rights are transferred over to the other step parent. And so it is a process. And so for those of you who are thinking about adopting your stepchild, I would suggest that you sit down and you think about it. You kind of have a meeting with the family about it and see, how will this affect the child? Most people that adopt their stepchildren, that bond has taken place. And I've talked about that before, that there's a bond that takes place with the parents. That bond has to take place, and it takes time for that bond to take place. So by the time you've decided to adopt that child, it's probably maybe 2 or 3 years into the process of being in that blended family, and you've created that bond. And so, like I said, that's something that you need to sit down. You need to talk about that as a family and decide, is this something that you want to do? So let's get to the pros and the cons of it. And I like this part about it because remember, I said earlier, this is not something that I thought about. I never thought about having my husband adopt the children because I thought informally that once we got married and we became a family, that they were the family. And so, but as I've thought about it over the years, and I've really thought about it as a therapist, and I thought about the emotional impact on the children, I said, you know what, this is probably a good idea, especially if the bio parent is an absentee parent or they're not that involved in the children's life. Because the first benefit is the kids get a sense of belonging. They get a sense of belonging. And I'm not saying that they don't have a sense of belonging in the blended family without being adopted. So let me make that disclaimer right now. I'm just talking about when they are adopted. So there's a sense of belonging because just think about it. Excuse me. And I thought about this when I was writing this. My mind went back to when I was a child. And remember when they used to had teams and they had the captains and they had to pick people who they wanted on the teams. And I was terrible in sports. I'm just going to be honest. I was terrible in sports. And so as a result, I either got picked last or it was like by default, I was on someone else's team because I was the last one left. And I was thinking about that feeling. That's an awful feeling. I hated that feeling. Whenever we were in gym and the teacher said, okay, we're going to pick teams, I'll be like, oh my goodness, we're going to pick teams because I knew that I wasn't going to be picked because I wasn't one of the favorites. I know I'm not the only one. So if some of you have went through that also, put that in the chat to remind me or to let me know that, hey, I understand where you're at, Lois. You weren't alone. I was one of those that didn't get picked also. And so that was a terrible feeling. That was a horrible feeling. It was like a sinking feeling because people got picked over you and you were just still sitting there and not being picked. And so it kind of lets me think about the child that when their father or their mother is not around, how that feels like nobody wants me, how it feels like, I'm left out. So that's why I say that when a child is adopted, it's a sense of belonging because what that step parent is saying is that I want you. That step parent is saying, I choose you. I choose you to be my child. As a bio parent, we have no choice on our children, how they come out. We have no choice on their personality or how they look. However they come out, we have to accept them. And we do. We love them because they're our child. But just think about the adoptive stepchild that this parent sees everything about them, sees how they look, how they act, and they still say, you know what? I still choose you. That's got to be a great feeling to know that this person chose me and they wanted me to be their child. So having a sense of belonging and then feeling loved. Wow, that's awesome. That's an awesome feeling. And the next thing is that when you are a stepchild, you probably have a different name. And so once you become adopted, everyone has the same name. No one can say they're the favorite child or no one can be excluded because everyone has the same name. And once again, being adopted means that you're a part of, knowing that someone chose you and everyone has the same name. And so now with everyone has the same name, it's saying that both parents have accepted all the children as the same. Again, I got to make this disclaimer. I'm not talking about blended families. I'm talking about when you get adopted, what happens with that whole process. I'm talking about the emotional part of that and the intellectual part of that. And so it says that all parents are accepting all of the children as the same. There is no difference. And then another big important part is financially. Financially, the child is protected from any type of future inheritance, any type of benefits. So the children are they're financially taken care of legally. Now, in the blended family, for some people, there's controversy and there's sometimes issues in the blended family because the extended family doesn't accept the children. And in some families, it's like that. But when you adopt your child, that's never the issue. Because once the rights get transferred over to the step parent, then that's their child. And so legally and in the eyes of everyone, that child is a part of the family. So you don't have those arguments about this is not our child and this child is not my grandchild and this is not my niece or nephew, because they've been adopted. Once again, that's an awesome feeling. That's awesome. So let's just skip over and look at some of the benefit for the step parent. And once again, in blended families, one of the issues that a lot of step parents face is that people are saying you're not the parent. They want to overlook you. They don't want to include you because you're not the parent. Even in the school, when you fill out the paperwork and you go up there, they want to ask, are you the legal guardian? And if you're not, well, we need to talk to the parent of the child. And so you feel left out. But once you adopt that child, once again, it's a feeling of belonging for the child, and it's also a feeling of belonging for the step parent, because now I am the parent. So now they don't have to worry about all these uncomfortable questions and who are you? And, when you go up to the school, if this is a new secretary, now you got to go through it all over again. Every year for the new teacher, you got to go through it all over again, who you are, and let them know that you are a part of their life. And that can be exhausting. And that's what step parents go through. But once you adopt that child, you don't have to go through that anymore. They see your name as the same name, and automatically they give you all of those rights. Again, awesome feeling. Another positive for the step parent is now you have a right to make decisions. No longer do you have to wait till that other bio parent decides to step up, that other bio parent to give you permission to do something. They may not have been in the child's life for years and they just pop up, but because they're the bio parent, they have a right to make decisions. That no longer happens. So now you have a right to make decisions about where they go to school, even decisions about their religion, decisions about their medical. So you have a right to make those decisions. And you don't have to wait until the other parent gives you permission to do that. Or you have to wait till you pull them into the conversation. Because sometimes pulling them into the conversation can be very difficult. And it can create a lot of challenges for you. So now you don't have to worry about that challenge. I just want to just look at some of the cons with that, some of the negatives. And as I researched this, I didn't see a whole lot of negative. One of the big negatives, of course, is if those two people don't stay together, if they decide to divorce, now that child becomes that step parent that adopt them, it becomes their responsibility. So they have to pay the child support and pay the life insurance. And a lot of courts require health insurance. But my thought is that if you adopted that child, you have that bond, that you want to do this, that you look at them as your child. You don't look at them as anything other than as your child. Because just like those of us that have our own bio kids that have separated, you still see your kids, even if you're not with your other partner, you still see your kids as yours. You still love them. So I believe that that'll be the same thing that happens with the step parent. So even though that's a negative, that's not a negative that I think that would really cause too much of a problem. I started exploring this and researching it. Like I said before, I used to be like, well, I wonder why they want to adopt them, because, like I said, we used to do it informally. But I understand now why they want to do the legal adoption, because it has so many benefits, not just for the stepchild, but for the step parent. And it's a way of bonding the family together, bonding the family together. So if you still are thinking about, Lois, I still don't understand this, just think about the legal documents when you're in a house versus when you own that house. legally. Those papers mean something. And it brings a sense of pride. It brings a sense of ownership. It brings a sense it brings protection with it. And so, those of you who have been in this situation of being adopted, I'd love to hear your comments. On those of you who are considering adopting a child, I'd love to hear your comments too, because I think this is something that, is worthwhile. It's worth the conversation. Because when I sit back and I think about, had I did it all over again, especially as my children became older, I probably would have had that conversation with my husband and had that conversations with them. Even though they're close now and they have a loving relationship, I think I would have explored that. Okay, so that's all I have for you now. So again, give me those comments and let me know what you think about what we've talked about today. And until our next session, take a deep breath, relax, because you've got this.